Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another video. In this one, we have a fun video planned for you today. We're doing a tier ranker list video of the Batman Arkham game villains. Now, I want to be very clear about what I'm doing here. I am not ranking the villains on their own merit. In other words, I'm not saying, oh, is Bane an okay villain, an awesome villain, or a bad villain. Instead, what I'm saying is Bane a great villain in the Batman Arkham games? Is he an awesome villain in the Batman Arkham games, or is he just an okay villain in the Arkham games? Because some of these villains are amazing, but they're shit in the Arkham games, or vice versa, or they're not that good in the comics, but they're really good here. So I am only ranking them based upon their appearances in the 4 Batman Arkham games. I wanted to make that very clear before people riot and burn down my channel and cancel me. Okay, let's get right into the list. By the way, I'm going to change these categories a bit. You know, they're okay, but let me revise slightly. Okay, so I'm just going to add an extra layer. Instead of 3 tiers, we're going to have 4. So awesome, great, okay, villain. We'll add the trash tier and then NA. Because I noticed in just skimming the list here, there are some villains who are replicated twice. And presumably it's because, like, for instance, well, you know, Joker shows up in Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and is voiced by Mark Hamill, but then in Batman Arkham Origins, he's voiced by somebody completely different, Troy Baker, and it's kind of a different Joker. But the thing is that Arkham Origins and Arkham Asylum City and Night are all canon to one another. So when you see the Joker in Arkham Origins, it's the same Joker as the one in Arkham City. So therefore, I think it's kind of erroneous to rate them as different characters, even though, obviously, once again, another great example where this kind of makes sense. I see what the guy is going for here. In the case of Scarecrow in Arkham Asylum, he looks completely different to what he looked like in Arkham Knight, but nonetheless, it's still the same character. It's still completely canon, and therefore, you know, if there are any duplicates that I see, I'm just going to put them in the NA column, because I'm not going to rate, like, the different versions of the character, if that makes sense, because it's all the same character. All right, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Let's try to get the video to 500 likes. And let's delve right in. So starting off with a controversial one because of where I'm going to rate Bane. Once again, back to what I said at the beginning with my warning, Bane is a phenomenal villain, but the thing is, in the Batman Arkham games, he's a pretty limited role. First of all, working backwards in Arkham Knight, he's just this Easter egg where he's presumably dead, and you see all this stuff in this crate in the shipping yard. And then in Arkham City, as Batman, we're actually, like, helping Bane because he has these canisters, and, you know, we need to get them to him and whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. Then in Arkham Asylum, you know, he's pretty good, but nothing fantastic. I think also after seeing Tom Hardy as Bane and reading the Nightfall comic book where he's portrayed as this hyper-intellectual, when in the Batman Arkham games and to a lesser extent the animated series, when he's portrayed as just this bumbling idiot, I'm not a big fan of that. With that being said, though, in 2012 in The Dark Knight Rises, I also wasn't a fan of removing the Venom aspect of the character. So I think there's kind of this perfect balance where in the Arkham games, he's a bit too much of an airhead brute, you know, kind of too stupid, but in the, you know, Nolan interpretation of the character, he was almost like not like Bane in a sense, a totally separate character. So nonetheless, I say all of that to say, for Bane, I'm going to put him in the okay/average tier. Now, here is an interesting one. Frank Boles, obviously, in Arkham Asylum. I think that a lot of people would maybe put him down here or right here. I would disagree with that. I would put him up in the great tier. Because if you really think about it, this is wild. Frank Boles is the whole reason the Batman Arkham games happened. Because if it were not for Frank Boles, the Joker would have never broken out of prison. He was the rat on the inside, giving the code keys to Harley Quinn and the Joker and all of that, and he basically facilitated their entire escape. And obviously, he didn't get anything for it. Like, just a heads up in case any of you, the Joker becomes a real person. Like, whenever you aid the Joker and help him, it always comes back to bite you. Like, loyalty doesn't reward you with that guy. So, Frank Boles kind of done fucked up. But nonetheless, he's still a great villain. I mean, he was portrayed really, really well. And this whole notion that he's this villain on the inside who's actually bad and working with the Joker, but he's a cop and whatever. And it's this contrast to Jim Gordon, who's super righteous and upright and would never do anything like that. So I think that Frank Boles is actually pretty good. So I'm already off to a controversial start. I've put Bane below Frank Boles. People are going to fucking lose their minds. I'm sorry, but I gotta be honest, that, like, I think that Frank Boles is a more compelling and interesting character, particularly as it pertains to the plot of the Batman Arkham games, than Bane. I mean, it just is what it is. So similar situation with Two-Face. In Arkham City, pretty limited role, kind of involved in the opening part of the game. In Arkham Knight, I mean, literally the dumbest plot I've ever seen. He's like robbing banks And, you know, it's like, okay, whatever, dude. You don't have anything better to do besides rob banks. Okay, I guess. You know, I think he's okay in the Arkham games, if I'm being honest, but not spectacular. Even the voice actor in Arkham City, I thought is okay, maybe a little bit overacted, if I'm being honest. Okay, Harley Quinn definitely belongs up in the great tier because I think that in the Batman Arkham games, they did such a great job of fleshing out her character and like explaining who she is, because even in Arkham City, when they had the whole pregnancy test scare, they were really trying to build up who this character is. And then, of course, the Joker dies at the end of Batman Arkham City. And there's this Easter egg in Arkham City where it's like, holy shit, Harley Quinn is pregnant, and she thinks that Batman just killed the Joker. So I think one of the shortcomings of the Batman Arkham franchise is that they should have actually done more with the character to explain, like, she must have a really vitriolic hatred for Batman, which is explored in Harley Quinn's Revenge, to be fair, the DLC after Batman Arkham City. But I think it actually should have been a whole plot in Arkham Knight. Like, it should have had several hours devoted to it of Harley Quinn trying to get revenge on Batman, who she thinks killed the Joker. She doesn't know that Batman actually said, even after all you've done, I still would have saved you, after he accidentally dropped the cure. But he still was going to save the Joker. And I think that dynamic of, like, Batman still wanted to save the Joker, who Harley Quinn desperately loved, but also had this really toxic relationship with, where she's obviously abused and like screamed at and emotionally manipulated all the time. But nonetheless, she's very faithful to him. So she's a pretty compelling character, actually. She's fleshed out quite well, and I think that the Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC at the end of Batman Arkham City pushes her over the edge into this great tier. And by the way, there are some villains who I just don't really have a lot to say about, like Johnny Charisma. Sure, we'll put him here, we'll put her here, you know, whatever. Calendar Man is an Easter egg, you know, sure, okay. Scarecrow, this is an interesting one because, once again, kind of what this quiz was going for and having me grade Scarecrow as different characters, you know, in Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight, they do look and act completely differently. With that being said, though, I think that Scarecrow actually belongs up in this tier. And the reason that I say that is because of his role in Asylum and Knight, which are very different. But in Arkham Asylum, it was really, really compelling how Scarecrow was able to elevate the plot of the game, because some of the best aspects of Batman Arkham Asylum were actually brought on by Scarecrow. Two that come to mind right off the top of my head would be when Batman is walking into the room with all the dead bodies, and he opens up that you know, casket zip bag, and it's his mother, and Martha starts talking to him in this like zombie form. It's like, holy shit, you know, this game is crazy. I remember thinking that when I was like 9, you know, and Scarecrow brings on a lot of some of the really like the best moments in Batman Arkham Asylum, and he really made that game. I mean, the Joker was obviously phenomenal in the game, but Scarecrow is so good. He elevated that game in such a remarkable way. I still think, I made a tweet the other day, and I was like, how would you rank the death scenes of Thomas and Martha Wayne in mainstream portrayals? And I think that Batman Telltale is up there. I think that Joker, the 2019 movie, is definitely up there. I think that number one is probably the Batman Arkham games. The scene where Bruce Wayne, as Batman and in his mid-30s, is walking down the hallway, and then it slowly turns into Infinite. And then it transforms into Crime Alley. And then it ends with us, you know, kneeling down, standing over Thomas and Martha Wayne as 8-year-old Bruce Wayne. It was stunning. I mean, that was literally one of the greatest moments in video game history as far as I'm concerned. It is beautifully crafted, incredibly emotionally compelling, and that moment is all brought on by Scarecrow. Not only that, the boss fights were really interesting, really, really cool in Arkham Asylum. In Arkham Knight, they were really bad with the tank boss fights, obviously. So, but all the boss fights were bad in that game, so I can't really hold it against the guy. So I don't know. I think he definitely belongs up in this tier for his leading role in Arkham Knight, and also in playing a pivotal role in bringing on some of the best moments in Batman Arkham Asylum that really elevated that game to be what it was. So that's my position on that. Anarchy, I think, pretty similar to you know what I've been saying here about these guys. You know, decent role in Arkham Origins, nothing to write home about. So I don't really have much to say about him. Should have done more with them probably, but we'll put him there. Warden Quincy Sharp. This is an interesting one because I'm a little bit torn whether to put him here or there because of his, you know, the backstory with him being this evil warden of the asylum, obviously, and then becoming mayor in city. I think that was a really interesting plot line, kind of underutilized. So I don't know if I can put him up here. Like, he's not great, but I think he definitely belongs in this tier. Okay, Deadshot, definitely a pretty good villain. I'm tempted to put him here, for his role in Arkham Origins, which is really interesting, and the sort of detective vision scene where we're uncovering what exactly happened with the assassination. Didn't have a huge role in any of the games, so we'll probably put him there, but I'm tempted to put him up there, so we'll leave him in the okay tier, but I might change my mind later. But definitely, he played a pretty good role in the Arkham games. I liked his portrayal. So, Man-Bat is the next one listed here. Obviously, he's the reason that I woke up my parents at like 2:30 a.m. When I got home after the midnight launch party at Batman Arkham Knight, and nearly like fucking shit my pants because the game is... it's not particularly scary. I would say Asylum is actually scarier than Batman Arkham Knight. But that moment, that jump scare was like, it got everybody. There are compilations online that you can see where people have compiled when people see that reaction. And every time it scares you. And the funny thing about that jump scare is that even when you replay the game and you know it's coming, it still scares the shit out of you. Because it's kind of like RNG. It is a little bit random when it happens. And I thought that part is fucking just badass, With that being said, his plot in Arkham Knight, also really good. One thing that Arkham Knight did really well, and we'll talk about this more with some of the later villains, is they did a great job at sort of characterizing and making you feel empathy for the villains, right? And sort of showing that in the case of Mr. Freeze, in the case of Killer Croc, in the case of Dr. Kirk, they're kind of... Yes, they're villains, but they're also sort of victim of circumstance. And I thought that they did a really good job at explaining some of that in the flashback scenes with Man-Bat. So we'll put him in the okay tier. I don't think we can elevate him here, but he's pretty good. So next, Black Mask. And this is our first villain that we just have to enter into the trash tier. Arkham Origins, obviously, big fake flip out where we thought he was the main villain of the game, and then it was the Joker the entire time. And then going into Arkham Knight, he was involved in perhaps one of the worst boss fights in the history of the Batman Arkham games. That Red Hood boss fight is just really bad. His plot in the game is really bad. They did some weird things with his backstory as well. In that, so yeah, I mean, he's dead in the games. He literally died because he fell off of the windows of a 2-story building. It's like, okay, dude, whatever. So yeah, Black Mask, great villain, definitely a part of some really good comic book runs, but in the Arkham games, he belongs down here in my personal opinion. Okay, so we already ranked Bane once again, and Poison Ivy is another example of a villain that is humanized in a really interesting way in the Batman Arkham games, because in Batman Arkham Asylum, she's kind of just this traditional villain. She's a pretty good boss fight in the game. In Arkham Knight, they brought her to a whole another level where the interesting thing about Poison Ivy is they're kind of doing a similar trajectory with her and Harley, where they're not so much villains per se. They're kind of more anti-heroes. They're kind of victims of their own circumstance in a sense. And also with Poison Ivy, she's kind of just like a hippie. She's kind of just like an Earth Day hippie. I don't think she's a villainous per se. She's never going to go out and like murder people except to save plants. And it's like, okay, you can't kill people for plants. Human life is more important than plants, Poison Ivy. But I wouldn't say that she's like, I don't know, this horrible person. She's not like the Joker or something. She's not some sociopath or psychopath. She's just kind of like a hippie nut. So I don't know. She's kind of cool, whatever. And I think, once again, in the Arkham games, her portrayal in City was pretty good. Her role in that game was interesting. In Batman Arkham Knight, they did a great job where she had this sort of hero moment where she went from villain to hero, actually, and saved the entire city. She literally saved the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. Like, even though, yes, she is not necessarily a great person and she is a villain, at the end of the day, I thought her plot in Arkham Knight was really unexpected. Like, I legitimately was not expecting that. We've never seen a moment like that in the Arkham games where a villain straight up has a 180 moment where they become the hero of the story. And I thought that was fantastic in Arkham Knight. So she belongs up there. Okay, next, this guy, once again, I don't know, the what are they called? The Abramovich brothers, the Sickle and Hammer, they're like USSR, like clone, guys, whatever, brutes. I don't really have anything to say about them. I'll just put them right there. All right, Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze, I'm not going to lie, you're getting a little bit of a boost because you just so happen to be involved in the greatest boss fight in superhero video game history. definitely doesn't hurt his chances in my ranking. We're going to put him up there. I thought that once again in Arkham Knight with the Season of Infamy DLC, the way they characterized, and in Arkham City they did too, with Nora, with just kind of humanizing him in a sense. You almost feel bad when you're kicking his ass in City, and the boss fight is so good in City, obviously. And in Arkham Knight, it was a really, really good plot with the Season of Infamy DLC. So they do a great job at making you empathize with the character whilst, once again, sort of portraying him as a villain. And it makes you feel like it's hard to be Batman, which it is. Like, you have to make a lot of really difficult moral choices. In the case of Batman Arkham City, highlighted perfectly with the fact that Batman reveals he would have saved the Joker at the end of the game. I mean, that is a huge moral choice to make, because he almost certainly knows that in saving the Joker, he'll probably be sent back to the asylum and then probably break out again and kill more people. But Batman's morality just prevents him from executing the Joker in that moment, or not saving him. And that's kind of a divergence that I think Chris Nolan didn't understand. If you remember, in Batman Begins, there's this scene where Ra's al Ghul is on the train, and the train is going to crash, and obviously Ra's is going to die. And Batman has this moment where he's like, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you either. And then he jumps off the train and is like, bye-bye, Ra's al Ghul, you're fucking dead. You're going to be splattered into a million pieces when this train crashes. And that just never sat right with me. That's not Batman's morality. That's certainly not accurate to the comics or anything like that, unless we're reading some comic book from 1940 when Batman used AK-47s. But after 1941, they actually editorialized, the editor of DC Comics made the decision that Batman doesn't kill. And since then, Batman is only killed in Elseworld stories and one-off stories. But Batman doesn't kill, and he not only doesn't kill, he goes out of his way to save people. It's very similar to like the policy for the police in the United States. Like, if the police shoot somebody and then the threat is eliminated, then they have to go like do CPR and save the guy that just tried to kill them. That is exactly Batman's morality, where he is, even if he is trying to subdue a threat, and if he can save any of these villains if he's in the position to save them, he will. And that's his morality. And I think that the Batman Arkham games captured it perfectly, and Chris Nolan missed the mark on it. So anyway, I don't know why I started rambling about that, but whatever. Okay, so next, let's go to Deathstroke. Deathstroke, I'm going to be honest, this is a hot take. This might even get me canceled. The Deathstroke boss fight in Arkham Origins is pretty overrated. Like, I've replayed it. It's literally like a QTE spam, and it's very repetitive. You just spam triangle, then you hit X, and then he throws the canisters at you. You block that. It's like 3 different things that you do. It's not like, oh, I'm really testing your combat skills, player. I don't know. I was pretty disappointed, and even when I replayed it, I was like, that's it? I remember this being better than it actually was, so I'll put him in this tier. He also doesn't have a huge role in the games. Electrocutioner, similar thing. We'll put him there. Riddler. Oh, boy. This is a hard one. The Riddler is annoying as fuck in the Arkham games. It goes without saying. I mean, in Arkham Knight, there are 243 Riddler trophies. In Arkham City, there are 400 or over 400. Arkham Asylum, there's a bunch. He's annoying as hell. And every time you get a trophy, he has to taunt you over the microphone, which is annoying. He also doesn't have any real role in the main story of any of these games. And based upon my prior logic for how I've rated these villains, it would seem disingenuous to put him up in this tier. I feel like I have to do it, though. I really feel like he plays a pretty substantial role throughout all these games. Like, also in Night, where they integrated the Batmobile, was actually really good with Riddler. Not with the trophies, but I mean with like the racetracks and everything that they came up with. I thought that was great. I don't know. Like, the Riddler is also the only villain listed here who is like pretty substantially implanted throughout all 4 of the games, excluding the Joker. Like, look at any of these villains, and they do not play a prominent role in the side missions or main missions, the main story of all 4 of the games. It's literally the Joker and the Riddler. That's it. To a lesser extent, Harley Quinn, I suppose. Actually, no. To a lesser extent, Harley Quinn. But anyway, I think the Riddler belongs up here. He's a really big part of the Batman Arkham games, and quite frankly, he's portrayed really well. It is the Riddler ripped straight out of the comic book, so I think he belongs up here. Okay, I don't really have anything to say about him. Clayface, I also don't really have anything to say about him. I mean, it's Clayface. Like, he is a part of a pretty interesting plot twist. Obviously, the best plot twist in all the Batman Arkham games, which I liked. But so yeah, I'll put him there. He's good. The Joker goes without saying. I mean, we've got to put the Joker up here in this top tier. The interesting thing about the Joker is that just when you think the Arkham games are not about the Joker, they are. And that was certainly the case with Arkham Origins, with the bait and switch, and then in Arkham Knight. But I actually, in retrospect, I like that. In Arkham Origins, we look at the plot twist and we kind of like groan. It's like, oh my God, again? It's the Joker again. And then in Knight, we get to it. It's like, oh my God, again? But the reality of it is, when you get to that final boss fight in Arkham Knight, you're driving to the asylum. Is the final boss fight against Scarecrow or is it against the Joker? It's against the Joker because the Joker is the main villain of the game. He's the main villain of every single Batman Arkham game, without exception, period. And the Arkham series is a game about is a series and franchise about the duality between Bruce Wayne and the Joker, period. It's about their relationship. And Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight showed that. And it took the sort of retrospective history to recognize it. In the moment, we're like, what the fuck? They're using the same, gimmicks, right? That was certainly my thought in Arkham Origins, and to a lesser extent with Arkham Knight. It's like, oh my God, again. But the reality of it is, the relationship between Batman and the Joker is so compelling that they just can't repudiate it. Like, you can't go away from it. And I don't blame them for wanting to build upon the relationship between Batman and the Joker in Arkham Knight. And frankly, Arkham Knight is a psychological thriller game. End of story. It's not about Scarecrow. It is about the relationship between Batman and the Joker and his inner demons. That's the name of the song with Nick Arundel. When you're riding to the asylum, that's why the song Inner Demons plays, because that's what the game is about. So the Joker goes without saying. I didn't even need to explain why we'll put him there, but we will put him there. Jason Todd. Oh, Jason Todd. What do I do with you, Jason? Here's the trick. He had such little backstory in any of the games. Like, Arkham Origins would have been the perfect time to show more about Jason. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if Rocksteady and W Montreal corroborated and were like, hey, we're going to make Jason the main villain in Arkham Knight. And we can't just rush his story in 2 hours and show the flashback scenes of him getting, beaten up by the Joker and tortured and killed in Arkham Knight 2 hours before the reveal that Jason Todd is Arkham Knight. No, we can't do that. That would be silly. So what we need you to do is we need you to make a game about Bruce Wayne and Jason Todd and their relationship together. And we need you to show the Under the Red Hood storyline in Arkham Origins. Now, they didn't do that, and W Montreal told their own story. But if I'm being honest, like, Under the Red Hood Batman Arkham Edition, that would have been badass. You can't deny that. And that ultimately is the biggest fault of the Batman Arkham games, in my opinion, is that in Asylum, it makes perfect sense for Batman to be on his own and have no Robins and whatnot. But in City and Origins, it really should have involved Batgirl and Tim Drake and Dick Grayson much more than they did. Even Arkham Knight minimally involved Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. So I really strongly feel as though Arkham Origins had the potential to incorporate the Jason Todd storyline, and then Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight, instead of feeling like they're almost in different worlds and they're conflicting with one another and like they're conflicting visions of what the Arkham universe is, they would feel in harmony much more. And it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Between Origins and Knight. And it's just like, wow, this is the beginning point of the Arkham games with Jason and Bruce Wayne developing their relationship together, and then in Arkham Knight, they meet again, and ultimately at the end of the game, it would add so much weight and levity to that relationship, because we don't even get the context of the relationship. Imagine if we had spent 6 hours as Batman spending time with Robin, Jason Todd Robin. We would have a totally different feeling towards Jason in Knight when we see him. Granted, it would have made the plot twist more predictable, but the plot twist was predictable in Arkham Knight anyway. We all knew it was coming. I mean, literally nobody was like, oh my God, it's Jason Todd. Who would have fucking guessed? So that's a moot point. Like, the fact that it would be predictable is almost pointless. I think that it would have added so much weight and levity to the reveal instead of like, oh, it's Jason Todd. Who is this guy? I mean, we know who he is because we've read the comics. We've seen the animated series. We've seen Under the Red Hood, the animated movie. Other than that, how would we know who Jason Todd is? In the Batman Arkham games, we see him for the first time when he takes off the mask. And then all we see is in a flashback scene, he gets his ass beat with a crowbar. So I thought that whole thing was kind of botched, and they should have worked together a little bit more. You know, W Montreal now is getting their own opportunity to tell their own story. In Arkham Origins, it probably wasn't the time for them to tell their own story, looking back on it, if I'm being honest, because it could have complemented what Rocksteady was doing a little bit more. So that's my opinion on Jason. With all of that being said, he still belongs up here. Like, he still plays such an important role in the Arkham games, and we do get some pretty good character development. Like, the flashback scenes with the Joker and Jason Todd are really compelling. You have to remember that the only reason Arkham Knight and Rocksteady, literally, I'm not exaggerating, lost millions of dollars to show the flashback scenes with Jason Todd torturing and killing the Joker. Because if you noticed, when that moment where Batgirl shoots herself in the head, the Joker covers it up so that you can't see it. That's to avoid the M rating. The other thing that might have gotten them the M rating, so they might have gotten it either way, was the scene where the Joker walks in and it's the Killing Joke scene, you know, where he shoots her in the stomach, what have you. That's edgy, but I think they could have gotten away with that. What really sold it is the torture scenes where, you know, Jason is strapped up and the Joker's torturing him and kills him, you know, in those flashback scenes. That ultimately put the game over the edge. And that is why the game was rated M. And in rating it M, there were so many people, you know, like I know Luke Wayne is just one of them. Like, there were so many people that couldn't play the game. When you're 13 years old and your parents say you can't play M-rated video games, that's very common. That's not unusual, you know? And the fact that they still put that in there showed how much they really wanted Jason to leave a legacy and leave his mark on the Arkham games. So this is a very integral character to the story, and for that reason, we put him up in the great tier. The boss fights were just god-awful, though. Like, you're literally Rocksteady. This was literally our chance to fight off against our sort of Padawan learner, in a sense. Like, think about the Batman vs. Deathstroke boss fight in Origins, but on steroids. That's what this boss fight could have been. He knows your every move. He trained under you. He knows your style of martial arts. And he has a legitimate chance at kicking Batman's ass. Instead, the boss fight is a tank chase through the tunnels. I mean, I was livid when I played that. I couldn't believe that they did that, honestly. It was incredibly disappointing. But with that being said, I think that Jason still belongs up in that tier. Deacon, okay, yeah, you know, interesting little cult leader. The weird thing about Deacon, I don't know if you guys know, he actually has magical powers. He lives past, he's over 100 years old, and he can mind control people in the comic books. Now, we don't really see that in the Arkham games, but it's weird because they set him up as like, oh, he's this nutty cult leader, like he's misleading all these people and making them follow him, kind of like other cult leaders in the past, like Scientology or whatever. Like, he's just this crazy nut, but he's wrong about everything. But also, he's connected with God so that he can live over 100 years old and he can mind control. It's like, what? You know, who is this character? He's interesting, but we'll put him here, obviously, because he's a small role. Okay, Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter's tricky. The boss fights were so badass. Season of Infamy was great. Arkham City boss fight was really, really good. He just has a small role, though. We got to put him there. I can't put him up with those guys, honestly. Hugo Strange. He definitely belongs. I'm not putting him there. I just had to scroll up. I think he definitely belongs up here. Even though, yes, it's a little bit weakened. Like, his role in City is a bit weakened at the end of the game when you're in Wonder Tower and you realize that actually, you know, Raish is pulling all the strings. It's kind of like, oh, Hugo, I thought you were cool. Now you're not as cool as I thought you were. You're kind of, you know, like, I don't know. I thought you were badass. I thought you planned this whole shit yourself. It was really Raish the whole time. It's like, oh, you know. But with that being said, he's still a badass villain. He's still a top tier Batman villain, and he's great in Arkham City. So I got to put him up there. Firefly, he's okay. You know, in Arkham Knight, his boss fight is terrible. In Origins, actually really good boss fight and really interesting role with the bridge scene and everything. So we'll put him in the okay tier. Yeah, once again, don't have anything to say about this guy. Like, whatever, he's just a brute. Stag. Okay, this is interesting. I kind of like the evil billionaire, kind of like a Lex Luthor type villain. Pretty limited role. I'll put him here. We'll put him in this tier. Zsasz. I think Zsasz is cool as hell. Like, not only that, he's in Asylum and City too. The phone call things was cool. The final boss fight with him in City is cool. The 2 hostage situations in Asylum, what we have with them, are cool. But is he up here with like Jason Todd and Harley? No, we got to put him down here. We'll put him down there. Okay, Poison Ivy. Didn't I already rate her? I already put her up here. Yeah, so we already did her. Hush. Hush is interesting. People were mad that Hush was kind of, he didn't have a great payoff in the Arkham games, which I would agree with. Okay, it's true that he did not have a great payoff in the Batman Arkham games. But in City, the side mission was really cool with the whole like carving of the faces and shit. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? That's cool. And then in Night, it was still a huge surprise when we see him go up into Wayne Tower and then he slams Lucius's head into the wall. We're like, holy shit, Bruce, what are you doing, dude? And then you realize that it's obviously Hush. But that was a good moment. I'm not gonna lie. Once again, I don't think he belongs up here though, so we got to put him here. Killer Croc. Killer Croc is one of those villains who was really, really contextualized quite well in the Batman Arkham games because they essentially... I already rated Mr. Freeze. I'm just removing the ones I already rated. I haven't rated these. No. Okay, we're good. Okay, so now to Killer Croc. I mean, really interesting villain in the Arkham games because he's kind of like a victim, and they portray him as that in the Season of Infamy DLC. I thought that was quite good. With that being said, we'll still put him here. Is this Talia or Nissa? Is this Nissa Al Ghul or Talia? I can't really tell. I assume it's Talia. Talia is a great villain. We'll put Talia up here for sure. Again, that could be Nissa. Oh, no, who is that? I can't tell. Is that... It's not her. Okay, I can't really tell clearly who that is. I think that's Talia, so we'll put her up there. Raish definitely belongs up here in this upper echelon tier. The whole sort of ringleader of Batman Arkham City, which was a fantastic plot line, so he definitely belongs there. Copperhead right here. Penguin right here as well. Kind of a minimal role in Night. Not that great, and really, he doesn't have any standout moments, I would say, so he belongs there. And Professor Pig, he had a really cool boss fight. We still have to put him in this okay tier. So this is my recap of the tier ranker. My top tier villains of the Batman Arkham games: the Joker, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, Hugo Strange, Ra's al Ghul. And great villains: Frank Boles, Harley Quinn, all these right here. A lot of villains falling into this sort of middle tier. Black Mask is the only villain that I thought was a big letdown in the Arkham games, like really, really disappointing. And these were duplicates. Okay, guys, so there is my tier ranker list. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.